Hello and welcome to Zero Trust World 2025. CyberRisk TV is here, recording live from the Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for our next interview is Ryan Bowman, VP of Solution Engineering at ThreatLocker. Welcome, Ryan. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you today.
So my first question, what is solution engineering? Help me understand that term.
That's a good question. So our solutions engineers are the ones who help our customers, first of all, understand what ThreatLocker does, how our solution protects them from a cybersecurity perspective. But then we also, those that come on board as partners, we also continue on and make sure that they know how to properly implement and manage the solution. So many organizations have sales engineers, so that's part of our solutions engineering role,
Right.
but we don't hand them off after the sale. And that's why we went with solutions engineer as the
customer
title.
success as well.
So customer success. Yeah, we have maybe a bit of a longer POC process than some organizations might put you through, because we really want you to help understand what the solution does for you before you make that decision. That
well, you're
investment.
doing a lot more than other solutions do. Yeah.
And so rather than then hand you off to somebody who's going to then onboard you, who now has to start at square one and doesn't know anything about you,
Right.
We just allow our engineers to kind of continue through that process, help them successfully onboard and understand how to manage the solution.
And I understand, is that what the certification I've been seeing is about as well, the Cyber Hero?
Yeah, that's a certification we offer to our customers to kind of validate their expertise in managing the ThreatLocker solution. So it's open to everyone. Of course, we put our own staff through something very similar, before they begin to offer support and things like that. But it's an opportunity for those administrators who are managing the solution for their organizations to kind of get that validation that they understand how the solution works and how to implement it.
Gotcha. All right, so also want to talk about Shadow IT today. So Shadow IT has been, I think the first time I heard the term was maybe when Dropbox became big. All of a sudden, there's this cloud-based solution, and all your corporate files were zipping off into something, somewhere.
Right.
So this, the idea of shared responsibility didn't exist yet. AWS was brand new, I think around the same time that Dropbox first came out. And I remember I was working for a large payment processor at that time, and I'm usually the problem. So it was interesting that I was in security building the policies and things like that, because I'm always the guy trying out the latest thing for the new time. If you look at my password manager, there's 1,400 items in it. I create accounts on all the things, I try out all the things, so I'm kind of, I understand the problem more than most.
Yeah, and you bring up Dropbox, and that's still one of the key elements that I see as one of the risks associated with Shadow IT is if you don't know where your data is, then you can't protect it, which is one of your core responsibilities. It may not be backed up. If employees are putting company data on, say, a personal, whether it's Dropbox or Google or OneDrive or wherever you want to put it, if it's outside of the scope of what the IT department is managing, then that data is gone.
Yeah.
The employee leaves the company, they still have your data. There's no way for you to claw that back. And so, that remains, what started out of those first, cloud storage platforms kind of started creating this problem, and it's still a problem today. And then now it's not just Dropbox, there's 20 or more probably opportunities you have to put data in places that are probably outside the scope of what IT is aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, now we have to worry about AI training on data, right? And, data is still very much, I think, front and center. I used to, when I was an industry analyst at 451 Research, I predicted data security would be the last thing that we'd really fully go after because it was such a hard problem. Because the moment you put any controls around the data itself, I need to share something with someone. Okay, now you need to install this thing. And once you've finished installing that, I'll give you the passphrase and you can unlock it or decrypt it or whatever. It's just really cumbersome, adds a lot of friction. So it's a tough one, data security.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk about too is kind of the initiator or some of the reasons that we have Shadow IT is because of what you just described. The mechanisms that organizations sometimes give their users to accomplish their tasks, quite frankly, isn't good enough, right?
Yeah.
Do you really expect that an employee is going to go through a 10-step process to get a file to somebody when they could just send them a OneDrive link from their personal OneDrive? Like,
Yeah.
they do this so easy at home every day, and then when they get to work, it's so hard. And so there, obviously I understand the IT perspective of that too, and the security perspective of how they need to protect their data. But there has to be some kind of a balance there. We're sometimes not forcing, but nudging perhaps people into shadow IT because the options we've given them just quite frankly aren't good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough because the market's constantly changing. I'm sure some percentage of those things, those 1,400 items in my password database, those products probably don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They've probably been shut down. I can just remove those out of there, and typically some of my favorite products, often Google, right, shutting things down. But if we zoom out a little bit, not just talk about data, but talk about applications, is there a more structured way to allow people to go after shadow IT, or to kind of funnel them into a conversation with IT, so that you can kind of tackle this stuff as it comes up?
Yeah, I mean, apologize. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of part of the bridge that we need to build, right, between the IT, security, and those end users to be able to create solutions that are going to work for everybody, giving them the applications that they need to be efficient and effective in their job, making it easy to get those and to use those. And again, quite often, while restrictions are important, if we're too restrictive, we're nudging people away from the process, which I think is a bridge that needs to be built between those different departments and work together, right? Instead of just no, you're going to do it my way, even though it's really hard. Let's talk about what's hard, and let's see if we can come up with a better solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and integration is another big piece of that as well, right? It's a lot of different ways so maybe we can talk a little bit about how do you discover that you have a shadow IT problem in the first place. Yeah, I think every product that I see that tries to tackle shadow IT, that first component is discovery. How are you going to find it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that ThreatLocker really can help with. When you deploy our agent, we do a discovery process. We show you what applications people are using. We show you what data they're touching, how they're touching the data. And so when you look at that data and you say, oh, I've got 3, 4, 5 programs that all essentially do the same thing that are used within my organization, that's a complexity, that's an integration challenge more than likely. When I work with you, I get a OneDrive link. When I work with somebody else, I get a Google link. And when I work with somebody else, I get a Dropbox link. Like, the more of those things we throw at people, the more complex their job becomes. And so when teams try to interact and work together and nobody's doing it the same because we've all chosen our own piece of software of choice, that obviously complicates those integration pieces. So ThreatLocker then obviously allows you to put those controls in place and say, well, no, you're actually only going to use this piece of software. This is our software of choice. It's a control mechanism. You try to run something that's not permitted, you're just simply not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Now they can, of course, users can request. You can change those policies, but really putting control in place is how you stop. Figure out what's going on first of all, and then put controls in place to only allow what it is that you've given them permission to do.
Yeah. And I think it helps that a lot of these organizations have made it, I think in early days, some of these products, you have to install the product to get the file, and now it's pretty easy with most of them where it's just a web page and you can download the file directly. Like, it's optional. Yes, you could have an account and you could, put this file in your account if you don't want to download it to your local PC. But at least it's an option. Some of these vendors are giving us options where, no, I don't have to install the piece of software to decrypt the files or to, get access to the thing that we're collaborating on.
Yeah, and that's a control mechanism as well, right? For sake of example, if OneDrive, Microsoft's OneDrive is your file cloud storage of choice, then what business reason is there for your users to go to Google Drive?
Yeah.
There's probably not. There probably shouldn't be, and so block it.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't get there, you can't log in, you can't upload files. So again, it comes back to that control. I mean, policies are great, but we know how that works, right? I mean, 80, 90, if you have a great organization, if people will follow policy.
Yeah, if they read it.
If they read it, if they even know what the policy
It's kind of like
is.
terms of service.
But yeah,
you scroll
exactly.
to the bottom, say, yeah,
I won't
agree.
do anything stupid, and so, you know, you have to put the controls in place or it's going to happen. And then you have to have a mechanism that tells you what's actually happening to help you kind of drive those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you know, what are some of the risks you're seeing out there with it in terms of, like I know there's a lot of organizations I'm talking to. I advise a lot of enterprises, you know, and you know, DeepSeek led to a bunch of calls that I've been fielding. And, yeah, you know, generally security teams being bombarded, they're asking me for this now, you know, like how do I respond to this? How do I lock this down? How do I, you know, what are some of the challenges you're seeing in terms of, you know, because not all of this are software applications, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of people are confused, like, what is DeepSeek? Okay, it's a SaaS service and an iPhone app and a model that you can download onto your system that doesn't have any executable code in it, you know, and it's you know, you look at the news, it's kind of confusing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think education is a big part of a lot of these things. And you can't solve everything through educating because, again, some people aren't listening, some people don't care. They just want to do what they want to do. They don't really care about everything else that's behind it. But I think there's a large group of people who, when you educate them on why it is that we're not just throwing all of our proprietary company data into an AI engine. Like, there's a reason we don't want to do that. And you expose some of those things, a certain amount of people
Right.
are going to take to that and kind of maybe accept some trade-offs with that. It's kind of like the, you know, the security awareness training that people have been pumping up for years.
Right.
It works for some people because they care and they're invested. Other people just aren't going to get it.
Yeah. Agree.
And then you've got sure. I
Let
watched
me
the
use
video.
the thing.
And then that's where that's where the controls come into place. Is to do your best to restrict the ability for them to do those things that they're not permitted to do.
So before we wrap up, maybe chat a little bit about exception handling. Like there's always going to be the exceptions. Like, yeah, we said no Google Drive, but you know, maybe the PR team or the marketing team, you know, they're working with an agency and the agency only uses, you know, you have some of these situations you have to make exceptions for. So like how do you handle those kinds of situations?
Yeah, and that's where the granular level of control, you know, comes into play. So it doesn't have to be one size fits all. Yeah, you're going to have maybe marketing who does things a little bit different. You're going to have the IT people who are allowed to do things that not everybody else is allowed to do because of the nature of their job. So yeah, the ability to break down those controls, not just company-wide where one size fits all, but by groups, departments, even down to the individual level. You know, the CEO always wants special exceptions. And so when you put those control mechanisms in place...
Most dangerous exceptions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the ones they should never have, but they want anyways.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to do that granularly, and ThreatLocker does enable you to do that all the way down to the individual computer or user, even for a time period.
Oh, wow.
You need Dropbox because you're working on a project for the next month. Well, all right, I'm going to let you use Dropbox for the next month, and then it's going to go away again so I don't forget.
So that's a great point. Like when I share to anyone with the link, oftentimes it's because we've got a meeting coming up, you know, so incredibly important for me to share this file for that meeting. The moment the meeting is done and over with, it should just be unshared. Like I should have an option not to share this thing with everyone or use this program for, like the app that I'm using for this conference. I would love to be able to say, you know, just delete it after the conference is done. I'm never going to have a need for the ThreatLocker 2025 app after this conference is done. Like, why don't I have that option more often?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the inability to do that is what creates most of the holes that you encounter. One of the most common things that we see from an MDR team is 3389 being open to the internet for remote access, right?
Yeah. RDP.
People will swear up and down they do not have 33 open to the internet, and we're like, yeah, but I see an active connection. So do you want to argue about? It's reality, but they don't know it. It's not gross negligence. It's not that they intentionally did something that was insecure. It was somebody opened it up, probably for a maintenance window or something like that, and they needed it for an hour.
Forgot about it.
And they forgot to turn it back off.
Proof of concept.
Testing, whatever. Oh, now we're going to roll live. Oh, I forgot I have that open. Like, those kinds of details just get forgotten. So the ability to set an expiration to an exception right out of the gate is huge.
That's huge.
Because odds are, particularly if it's a month, 3 months, you're going to forget.
Yeah.
But if you can set that right out of the gate, gets extended, get denied, okay, I'll give you another month. Is better than, I've never forgot to turn that off and I've had this security hole exposed for 6 months.
Yeah, so many companies get bit by that. Yeah, it just fell through the cracks.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. A great conversation. Love that you brought the time aspect into it. That is huge. And to access all the Cyber Risk TV content from Zero Trust World 2025, you can visit securityweekly.com/ZTW and stick around. We'll be back in a bit with more interviews. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.